Welcome to the podcast that will teach you how to successfully invest in and build steady streams of passive income from the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Veteran real estate investors Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart from Mobile Home Park Academy will personally share with you the valuable lessons they've learned along their journey as mobile home park investors, so that you too can learn how to build massive cash flow and huge profits from this extremely lucrative niche. So without further ado, let's welcome your hosts for today's show, Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart.
Welcome, guys and gals, to the Mobile Home Park Academy's weekly podcast, where we'll provide all the information that you need to know to successfully locate, negotiate, close on, and make huge profits from the lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. I'm your host, Kevin Bupp, and along with my co-host and business partner, Charles Dehart. So, Charles, on today's show, we're going to be sharing the stage with two incredibly successful and brilliant mobile home park operators, Mike Conlon and Chris Berry from Affordable Communities Group. Mike is the president and CEO, with Chris filling the critically important role of chief operations officer, and together they own and manage a portfolio of more than 3,000 lots throughout the eastern half of the United States. And today we're going to dig deep into Mike and Chris's business to see what makes it tick. But more importantly, we're going to pull back the layers and dive deep into how you can go from owning your very first park all the way to owning thousands of lots spread amongst multiple states. And not only will we be discussing how Mike and his team find their deals, but more importantly, what specific systems and processes they use to effectively manage and maintain this large number of communities. After all, it's one thing to find great deals, but it's a completely different ballgame when it comes to building a scalable business. But before we introduce Mike and Chris to the show, I'd like to run through a few quick housekeeping items. First off, I'd like to announce that our highly anticipated Mobile Home Park Academy is now open and it's ready for business, okay? We've got a group of students in there right now that are absolutely kicking butt, and we're open. So you're interested in mobile home park investing, you want to learn about this awesome niche, go check us out, mobilehomeparkacademy.com. The Academy is a 90-day intensive program, is by far the most in-depth training and coaching that you're going to find on this niche. So again, to learn more, go to mobilehomeparkacademy.com. Next up is that we've recently opened our Mobile Home Park Investment Partnership Fund, and we're looking for investors just like you who have an interest in partnering with me and my highly skilled team on deals. You can read more about our company and the opportunity of partnering and working together by visiting sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. Let Charles and I show you why mobile home parks are one of the best kept secrets and how they regularly outperform just about every other type of real estate investment that you've ever seen, okay? For those that don't already know, I personally have been involved in more than $40 million worth of real estate in my time as an investor, and I have solely focused on mobile home parks for the past 5 years, and I've yet to see any other real estate investment types that can hold a candle to mobile home parks. Again, you want to learn more? Visit us at sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. And in addition to the partnership opportunity, Charles and I have added an additional bonus that I wanted to mention here. Based on direct feedback from many of you who have shown an interest in partnering with us on deals, but not just as a passive investor, but also who have a sincere interest in learning the mechanics of the mobile home park investing business, we're now offering complimentary lifetime memberships to the Mobile Home Park Academy to anyone who decides to partner with us on deals. By doing this, we're allowing those who invest with us the first-hand experience of the internal workings of our business. So not only will you get to participate in deals with us, but you'll also have the opportunity to learn the exact systems and processes that we use in our very own business today. So maybe one day you want to do your own deals. If that's the case, then you'll have all the wisdom and knowledge necessary while simultaneously partnering with a team who has a proven track record. And to learn more about this unique investment partnership opportunity, again, go to sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. And just two more quick things, guys. If you ever find yourself in the Tampa Bay area, be sure to look Charles and I up. We live in the Clearwater area and would love to meet with you if you're in town here visiting. We'd love to talk real estate. We'd love to talk mobile home park investing. If you're here in town, you got some extra time, let's grab a coffee, grab a beer, whatever you have time for, okay? Shoot us an email at mobilehomeparkacademy@gmail.com. Let us know what your travel plans are, and we'll try to meet up while you're in town. Lastly, this is somewhat of a casting call. So if you're an active mobile home park investor, you own one or more communities, okay? It doesn't have to be huge. I mean, you can be a first-time investor, just own one, or you can own 100 of them. We're looking to speak to you. We want to have you on the show. We'd love to take your experience as a mobile home park investor and share it with our audience. We'd love to hear your story, how you got into the business, how you learned about mobile home parks, and why you like mobile home parks, okay? I feel like we learn more from each other's stories, real life stories, than we do in theory, right? If you don't have the real world experiences of people that are out there in the trenches day in, day out, then what's it really worth, right? So if you'd like to learn more about becoming a guest on a future show, please shoot us an email, mobilehomeparkacademy@gmail.com. And guys, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mike Conlon and Chris Berry to the show. Mike and Chris, how you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. And just to give everyone a sense of geography, where are we calling you guys at today? Where are you based out of?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay, good deal. So, Mike and Chris, you guys are basically rock stars in the mobile home park space. And Mike, I've had you on my other real estate podcasts multiple times over the past couple of years. And Charles and I always kind of follow your guys' progress. We want to be like you guys when we grow up. That's kind of the goal here. And so, what I'd like to chat with you guys about today is not just your business and how you got into mobile home parks or why mobile home parks, which I do want to hear that, and I want our listeners to know a little bit more about your background and how you entered into this industry. But today, more specifically, I'd like to cover the systems and the processes that have allowed you guys to scale, to such a large level while still maintaining a very lean company infrastructure, which I think it's pretty lean based on what I know about you guys. It's still very lean with regards to how many lots that you guys currently have under ownership and management. And I honestly think that that's really the hardest part of this business. And it's one of the many challenges that new investors will face as they begin to acquire more parks in their portfolio. I mean, one park's one thing, right? I mean, one park, pretty much anyone, if you have any basic experience being a landlord or running investments, one park's pretty easy. Two parks, it should still be very manageable, but you get to 3, 4, and 5 parks, especially if you throw like a turnaround deal in there where it's got a lot of park-owned homes that need to be sold off, and it's just a complete mess that needs to be turned around. Things get very challenging. If you don't have the right systems and processes in place, really the wheels fall off pretty quickly. And so I would love to learn a little bit more about your business and your infrastructure and all the systems and processes that make you guys unique and that allow you to run such a successful game, because you guys own thousands of pads out. What are you up to right now? 3,000 plus?
We're a little over 4,000 right now.
Wow. Fantastic.
And we stick around there. It's interesting. We were looking back just earlier today where we've been at and stuff, and we're right around 4,200, which we'll talk about. That for us is sort of the level where we can manage it fairly lean right now. If we start to go more forward, we're going to have to add some more people. So that's one thing to look at. But we've also sold probably 2,500 spaces over the last 4 or 5 years. Meaning what we did is we had more smaller parks. We bought, again, back in 2012, it was a little bit easier to buy parks a little cheaper. We bought a couple portfolios, and over the last 4 or 5, 6 years, we basically sold off the smaller stuff and bought bigger stuff and more quality stuff. So that's really helped us, get to that level. So not only do we own 4,000, it's, we've sold 2,500 over that period of time as well.
So it might not necessarily just be the number of pads under ownership management. It also, a lot of that plays into how many parks that really means, right? I mean, because you could have right now you have 4,200 pads under ownership management. How many parks does that equate to?
It's really, when we look at it entity-wise, where we cover the managers, it's 18 parks. Okay.
So that might be a different story if those 4,200 pads were made up of 40 parks, right? 40 smaller parks.
Exactly.
Yep. So before we dive into, because I don't want to get too far in the weeds. I do want to get into the weeds, but just not yet. I want to, just for those that are listening in that might not know your background, Mike and Chris, maybe just take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit more about yourselves and really how you got into this business, because I think that this is one of those under the mobile home park investing. It's really under the radar in comparison to like apartment buildings and every other type of commercial real estate asset that's out there. I mean, it's becoming more mainstream today, but it's definitely still like the mysterious niche that a lot of people don't know about. So tell us a little bit more about your background and your story, if you would.
Sure. We hooked up because I was in the financial planning business, and Chris's dad was one of my clients. And as his dad came to me and said, "Hey, my son wants to do an internship with your financial planning firm." This was when Chris was maybe a sophomore in college. That's right. And that's when we first got together and really worked on, we didn't own any real estate at the time. I knew nothing about real estate. During that period of time, as Chris finished college, I got a hold of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which you guys all know, and sort of changed my life and basically explained to us the, passive investment and depreciation and stuff like that. And so that's when I started to buy some of the properties, but I quickly realized, even in the first small property, that I wasn't going to manage it. I don't have the skills, the patience, whatever. And Chris will readily agree with that. He prefers I stay out of the operations more than anything else. But that's where we sort of started. And Chris, at the time, had graduated from college. I had sold him the bottom part of my financial planning book, and we did real well with the business, but he really wanted to be outside doing things, getting active. And so the first building, basically what we did is we split it 80-20. I put up all the money, I get 80%. He did all the management, he got a fee for 20%. And again, we were in the apartment business at that time, so it was much more maintenance intensive.
Okay. And then you guys, you ended up diving a lot deeper into the apartment space before you made the transition over to mobile home parks. So talk to me about that a little bit, because our multifamily is like the flavor of the day, or flavor of the decade, I guess you could really say. I mean, everyone's talking about multifamily, and it just, there's buildings coming out of the ground left and right where we are, probably where you guys are too. There's probably at least 20 buildings being erected right now that are A-class apartment buildings. So talk to me about the transition you guys made, like when you made it, why you made it into the mobile home park space.
Okay, so we were up in Appleton, Wisconsin at the time, where I had my practice. And, we bought a couple smaller properties there, an 8-family, a 4-family, and like a 24-unit, whatever it was. And really liked the business. We got our feet wet with it, but we realized nobody was moving to Wisconsin. And this was 2002. So we decided to move to Orlando, Florida. We picked up, and it's sort of funny. Chris was just about to get engaged, and I basically told him, hey, by the way, we're moving to Orlando. And
great conversation with my now wife.
I was going to say, did she stick with you?
She did. She stuck it out.
So we ended up moving to Orlando. We sold everything, basically broke even on a couple properties that we had there, but sort of understood the business, got our feet wet. And then when we went to Orlando, we bought 8, basically we call them mid-sized apartment complexes, anywhere from 64 to 125 units, mostly affordable housing, B minus to C plus type properties in Orlando. And that's where we really learned the business of. Most of them were projects to some extent that needed to be fixed up, and having probably 6 at any one time made it somewhat manageable for us. But we also learned how hard the multifamily business is, especially with the manager, having maintenance managers and constant turnover of the tenants. We didn't feel like we could really get past 250 to 500 spaces unless we had a huge staff, and that's not what we wanted.
Okay, so you guys are actually keeping the management internal then, like you weren't outsourcing it to a third-party company, it sounds.
No.
Okay.
No, we had everything within, I would say, an hour of Orlando. There was a lot of opportunity at that point in time, and we bought stuff at pretty good prices and things like that. But, from day one, Chris basically ran the management, and, he can talk about all the systems and stuff like that. But all the managers reported to him. And in the beginning, we were very hands-on. Chris was actually doing some of the management. So
okay.
That's how we all learned. I would go there, at some of the properties, once or twice a week, just to help out or whatever. And Chris basically kicked me out after about 6 weeks and said, I really don't need your help.
That's great.
It did allow us to hone our skills as managers before we got to the stage in our business where we were expanding to different states. So it was nice to have everything close by. Yeah,
I bet. I mean, I tell everyone I'd love to have all of our parks like within an hour or 2 radius. That'd be a beautiful thing. Not that I'd want to go visit them every day, but it just logistically makes things easier. But in the park business, if you're not willing to go outside of your wherever you live, that radius, I mean, if you're not willing to go out state, even if you want to own multiple parks, then it's probably the wrong business for you, because there's just not that many parks out there in the U.S.
Correct.
So I want to talk about the transition real quick, and then we'll really dive into your business itself. But a lot of people that are listening in that maybe they haven't bought their first park yet, maybe they've been exploring other podcasts, they've been exploring other investment types. Again, multifamily, it's like the flavor of the day. But they might think you're crazy. They might think, what the heck? These guys had a big business. They had a lot of apartments at a great time. Why would you sell off apartments to buy mobile home parks or trailer parks that some people consider them as? That's a kind of a step down in a lot of people's eyes. Why'd you guys make the move?
It's a good question, because we had long-term financing on a couple of the apartments. We assumed we were going to keep them for a longer period of time. And then obviously 2006 happened in Orlando. Prices went through the roof, and I started to get unsolicited offers from people, offering us money basically way more than we paid for it. And initially I sort of resisted because I was like, well, what am I going to do? Where am I going to reinvest? I can't be in Florida because prices are so high. But finally, Enon Winkler, who you guys know too, is a broker in Orlando, has switched over to mobile home parks. He just said, hey, Mike, take the check. There's always another deal. So we sold all our apartments at the peak of the market, not really knowing it was the peak. In 2006, basically all on unsolicited offers. We did very well financially in that. But the last thing we owned in Florida, I'd stumbled across something somewhere that said, hey, you should really look at mobile home parks because they're a lot easier to manage, especially if people own their own homes. It's a lot less maintenance intensive. And so we bought a little 80 space park in Lakeland, Florida, which was on a little over 4 acres. It was a beautiful gem of a park. We really didn't know what we were getting into, but Chris managed it for 7 or 8 months and said, hey, this is way easier than the multifamily business. We need to, as we're going to 1031 our money from the apartment sales, we need to go into mobile home parks, and that's what we did.
Okay, good deal. So now I want to ask you more about your system of process because it's a different business model completely. I mean, there's some similarities, but it's a completely different business than apartment building. So what unique systems have you guys had to create in your mobile home park business that weren't necessary when you guys own apartments? I mean, are there a lot of additional things that you put into play? I mean, for instance, I know that every park's different. Like there's so many different variables when we talk about mobile home parks, but a lot of parks have either vacant pads, you got to bring in homes and sell them off, or they have park-owned homes that you want to sell off. So there's a whole sales process that has to get put in place. There's private utilities sometimes that need reading, or where we're billing back or submetering the water and sewer. We've got to go out and read those. The management infrastructure is completely different. So talk to me about some of the unique systems you guys have had to create to adapt to this new business.
Well, let me just say first before, and I'll let Chris get into that more too, is really when we first, we 1031 the money, we got into North Carolina and we bought 3 parks. And all were projects, which, we ended up fixing up and flipping in 2011 and doing what we're doing now. But it was a situation where we didn't really know what we were doing initially. And I wanted to stay in state. Like you were talking about Kevin, or before Kevin, I was afraid to go out of state. We had never really managed anything out of state. So we tried to keep it in North Carolina, which really limited us what we were looking at. And obviously if we wanted to get bigger, but I had to get a comfort level that we could manage everything first. And that's what I'd tell every newbie, get your 4 or 5 parks. Hopefully they're a little bit bigger, 100 spaces, whatever. And make sure you're comfortable going through that, go through a project on a smaller basis first and really understand it. And then you can move forward. And now, we're in 7 or 8 states, stuff like that. But just so that's the basis before you want to get started. But now I'll let Chris talk more about systems.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think some of the key factors for us that allowed us to grow is number one, building a great team of managers. Number 2 is having the software and the systems in place like you discussed. And I think number 3 is being able to manage projects because they seem to never stop. But with that being said, our team is a very solid team. A lot of our managers came from apartment complexes that were trained by maybe larger companies. But managers are key. If you don't have a good management team, you're going to be in trouble because they're the first line of defense. They're dealing with your customers. Mm-hmm. They're collecting your rents. And we've got a great team of people. Most of our managers have been with us for years from the start. So I think that's one of the biggest things.
What as far as go ahead.
Let's talk about project-wise, just because that's where we started. And I just a quick thing on the market today. I mean, obviously the market is very frothy right now. And if you want, a coupon clipper park, you're looking at probably sub 7 cap, which I don't touch, but there are, 7 or 8 cap parks that require, putting in homes and stuff like that. So what I think Chris has really gotten good at, and it's from experience, is he knows how to manage the project. And obviously that's your biggest upside value. And we can talk about, some of the parks that we, bought super cheap, fixed up and sold for a couple $1 million more than we did. But that's really where it's at from the standpoint. And what Chris has done really well is he relates really well to the managers. And so like I barely ever talk to the managers. I maybe talk to them, once or twice a year, and it all goes through Chris. And they're all coming from bigger places where they've been ground into the dirt by, we know the bigger mobile home companies that do the same thing. And the apartment companies are even more notorious for doing it. So if you can take somebody and make them feel part of a team, you're going to get loyalty for life. We also overpay them a little bit, but our turnover has been basically zero for the last 5 years.
And they're incentivized to do well. So they stay. We treat them well. We pay them well, and they love working with ACG.
What is the basic compensation? I mean, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on like compensation, but I mean, do you guys have a general rule of thumb based on the size of a park or what you'll pay a manager?
Yeah, so we're typically we're sort of averaging somewhere around 175 spaces. That's our sweet spot right now, and that manager is going to make somewhere around $40,000 plus bonuses. So we want them to make close to $50,000. We don't do health insurance right now. We give them an extra $250 a month to cover health insurance. Hasn't been an issue for us. We haven't had to do it, but I sort of feel bad about not doing that, but health insurance is just so expensive. It's hard to deal with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about I'm actually blown away. I'm very impressed that you guys have been able to keep managers, for that long, and you have very little turn with your management staff. But I think a lot of that also plays to what you can pay them. There's a big turning point when you can afford to pay a manager $40,000 versus pay them $20,000 a year. I mean, you kind of get what you pay for, right? As far as caliber is concerned. So, do you guys think that that's a big part of your overall success with maintaining and retaining these managers that you've had for many, many years? Is that you can look for higher talent. You can find those that actually have some, apartment experience. They've managed apartments. They've got fair housing training. You think that's part of the overall success that you've had?
Well, I would say, initially when you start, and, Frank and Dave talk about this a lot, it's a lot easier just to get someone at the park, give them free lot rent and $500 a month or something, get it going. I totally recommend that for new investors and doing it. But obviously, once you get some scale, and I think the scale is somewhere over 2,000 spaces, maybe 2,500, and as you get bigger parks, you can pay your managers more. But that's what you want to do to get there. But you need to start small and get bigger. Okay,
sounds good. Charles, any questions that you have about management?
No, I think we're pretty good there. Okay. I mean, yeah.
What have you guys done as far as developing like standard operating procedures? Like we're at that part of our business now where we're trying to, we've got a lot of systems and processes in place and we try to document everything that we do, but we're at the point now where we're trying to get to a more of a micro level now to where should we need to hire somebody? Should we need to onboard a new manager? Should we buy, 4 parks in 1 month? How do we tackle that? How do we take it down? So do you guys have, do you have like, maybe it's not an operations physical manual, but do you essentially have a standard operating procedures manual that you guys go by for every component of your business, or is it just kind of up in your brain?
Yeah, we actually do have a physical written operations manual, and we go over it with all the employees when we hire them, so they kind of understand the expectations up front of what we're looking for and what we need. Mm-hmm. From an operations standpoint, I think one of the most important things is to get a good software system lined up right away. And I think that actually pertains to even if you have 25 units, get that system in because it's going to keep you organized and it's going to save you time.
Yeah.
We have a web. Go ahead.
I was going to ask what you guys use. What software, management software do you use?
So we use a system called Rent Manager, and there's a few other competitive companies out there as well, but Rent Manager has been solid for us. It's web-based, it's real-time. It allows us to see what's going on with the managers wherever I am in the country. We're in 10 different states now, so it's very helpful for me to be able to log on wherever I am and see what's going on in any of our parks.
And so, Chris, you're the main point person. So, you call yourself you're the chief operations officer, but other than that, you wear other hats. You're the point person for every single one of these on-site managers. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, they speak with me. I'm usually in contact with most of them every day, just keeping up with what's going on, the issues in the communities. Collections obviously is a huge part of operations. Probably one of the most important things is getting that rent in.
Yeah, are you guys pretty black and white with your collections policies? I mean, being that size, I'm assuming you have to be. I mean, we try to implement a black and white policy so we don't have to deal with the headaches. But talk to me about that a little bit. I mean, we're doing the first, late on the sixth, file and just kind of move forward. I mean, unless Mrs. Jones, that's paid on time for 10 years, obviously is proactive about telling us that her rent's going to be late, we're pretty black and white about our collections policy. How about you guys? How do you handle that typically?
I would say we're very much the same way. There's no exceptions. Occasionally, like you said, if Mrs. Jones has been there forever, that's a manager call. But really what I want to emphasize to everybody in the business, it's a collections business.
Yeah.
That's really what it's all about. And we take over so many parks where guys have 10 to 15,000 of uncollected rent. And I'm just like, are you out of your mind? I mean, why would you let people roll over every month? And obviously there's small owners and they get close to the residents and stuff like that. But I can't even fathom that and do that. So I would really stress to people, it's a collections business. And one of the big questions people always ask me, they said, well, obviously Chris, handles that stuff. He is awesome at that. And that's why his skill set is a lot different than mine. But we probably collect 99 to close to 100% almost every month for the last 5 years.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely
impressive.
Yeah.
Did you show up with like a bodyguard, or are you a big jacked up dude and you just like go threaten these people? You better pay your rent or else you're going to get me.
That's a trade secret within ACG.
We're actually buying a park right now. It's a 135 space park in Pennsylvania, and it's got over the past 8 years they've accumulated over $52,000 of past due rents. It blows my mind.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. What do you guys do in a situation like that? I mean, typically we just go in and we say, you know what, Christmas came early for you guys. Moving forward, here's our policy, and if you can't, be happy that we're giving you this gift. We're just going to forgive whatever you owe, and you've got a clean slate moving forward. Is that typically how you handle those situations?
Yeah, for the most part, we do similar. We try to collect some portion of that, maybe 30%. It really depends on case by case and how bad the collections are. But we try to, give them a big discount and then say you're on, double secret probation. If you miss one payment, you're late once, that's the end of the road.
Yeah. Okay. I want to get back to standard operating. Go ahead, Charles. Do you have a question?
Yeah. What types of activities do you have your manager doing within your rental software? Do they enter the rents in? Do they post rental charges? What kind of things do they do in that rent manager program?
Yeah, so they do. They collect the rents. They post in the rents. They close out the deposits. They're printing reports, receipts, breakdowns report, delinquency reports. Mm-hmm. So they're involved, and we also have them giving us a report a couple times a month, which is basically a snapshot of where we're at in our collections. And that lets them know of their goals, right? If they're supposed to collect $50,000 and it's they're at $42,000 on the 15th of the month, they know they got $8,000 more to collect before the end of the month.
Yeah.
So it keeps them involved, but they're very active in Rent Manager with the reports and the rents. We also have a check scanner system at every one of our parks, so the rents are deposited right in our office, and we correlate that with our Rent Manager system, so everything matches up. It helps us avoid any sort of theft issues or missing money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the manager's not running to the bank, that type of excuse. And the other thing that it's helped us too, I think, is we've implemented, security cameras at all the parks, real time, over the internet and things like that. It's given me a better comfort level that we can keep track of what's going on.
Is that like the security cameras? I mean, is it strictly for security? I mean, just like the entrances, or do you actually have them in different parts of the park so you guys can see just really the what the place looks like in real time?
Yeah, we have them all over the parks, basically. Mostly, obviously, number one, it's a deterrent for any bad people coming in. They see the cameras, right behind the manager's desk. But it's nice for, if there is an issue somewhere, we can, get on, or Chris can take a look at things or whatever it may be. You just, it's just nice to have a comfort level. You can log on the internet anytime and see what's going on at your park.
It's not one of those security systems where you can actually talk over like an intercom, is it?
No.
I interviewed an apartment guy, and he said that he installed a security system throughout his apartment complex where he could actually speak over an intercom, and he could see Bobby about to throw an egg at a car, and he could say, "Bobby, don't you do that, and I'm going to call your mom."
No, we're not that Big Brother type.
Yeah. No, I don't think I'd want to own a place like that where I'd have to feel the need to be speaking over an intercom at the residence. regarding standard operating procedures, I want to back up a little bit and talk about just kind of like go through all the roles of like, you find the park, but now what? You got under contract, you're going to do due diligence, and you're going to get financing lined up, and then you're going to put really like a business plan in place based on that particular park. Like, is it a turnaround? Is it just a stable park? We're going to walk right into it. Do we have to hire a manager? This, that, and the other. So do you guys have, who handle in your organization, who handles like the due diligence process as far as on-site and off-site? Is that either one of you guys, or do you have someone else that helps you with that?
Most of the time, both of us do it, different aspects of it. We're there multiple times at the park. And we've gotten so good at it, we sort of know, right away, what are the issues? The biggest issue for us is always infrastructure. Mm-hmm. What are the pipes? What do they look like? Is there a lift station? Is not? That type of situation. So, not to say we haven't made our mistakes, but we've always been pretty good. We're not micro managers. We're not going to beat up the sellers horribly. And I think that's why we've been able to get a lot of deals. We're pretty cool with the sellers about, we know there's going to be issues. We understand what we're buying. We feel like we're buying it distressed in almost every situation. So, but we basically go in with a playbook. We do the same thing almost in every park, and usually it requires different things, but I'll let Chris tell you what that playbook is.
Yeah, so usually Mike will find the deals, everything comes to him, and once he's given his blessing on the deal, it usually gets kicked over to me at that point to set up the bank accounts and get the insurance lined up and software systems, employees, all the stuff you're talking about. And then once we've acquired the park, we jump into our playbook, which is, fix the roads right away. Anything we like to do, like a project right up front that shows the residents, we're the new guys. We're going to do things right. We're going to make this community better. Whether that's destroying some old junky homes, cleaning it up, trimming some trees, bringing in new mailbox stations. We usually like to put in like a play set of some sort for the kids, or a soccer field, some sort of feel good project there. And then, it's a matter of enforcing the rules, collecting the rents, and
also obviously adding homes. We can talk about that in a second, but that's right now, I think the best opportunity for any newbie is to buy a park that's 70% occupied and get it up to 85%. And that's, whether you go through the Clayton Cash program or Champion or one of the other ones, that's the way to go.
Okay. And then, Chris, your role, let's say on a turnaround park, like I know most of the parks you guys buy have some sort of distress, some more than others, but that first stage of the process, when you're actually fixing the roads, you're putting the playgrounds in, you're making those improvements. Are you typically there? Do you spend a good amount of time, like days or weeks or months at this park, and get focused just on this one project before you move on to the next, or do you sometimes run projects simultaneously?
We usually have about 15 projects running simultaneously.
Every park's a project, right? Every day.
Yes, exactly. But in the beginning, yes, we were definitely on it. If you're a newer operator, you want to be there as much as you can to, oversee what's going on. Now, putting in roads and stuff, I might get the initial quotes lined up, but I'll have my manager there to oversee the actual installation of the road. But I'm definitely more involved on larger scale projects. For example, we had a park in Decatur, Alabama that we had to annex into a local municipality in order to get the sewer system hooked up to the municipal sewer, which, as you guys know, makes the park more valuable. But that was a large project that took over a year to accomplish. And those are the type of things where I'm focusing more of my time on.
Charles can speak to that right now. We've got a park in Pennsylvania where the master septic is failing. We knew that we had a backup plan in place. We kind of had run through the process before we purchased the park. We just didn't think it was going to fail as soon as it did. So he's had some gray hairs added to his head over the past 6 or 7 months. Getting hooked up to the public system there. But yeah, and we're not done. I think Charles, we've been in this process now for at least 6 or 7 months, and we still probably have another 6 or 7 to go, I would guess.
Yeah, we're going through a state financing. We're getting some financing from the state of Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of compliance stuff and a lot of paperwork involved with getting that financing. So.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a project in Maryland. We bought the park super cheap as part of a portfolio, but it probably took us 2 years to get, basically the septic system. We had to do like a mini wastewater treatment plant. We knew it all going in, but, dealing with the regulators is a nightmare. So especially the farther north you go, the worse the worse it is. So
so talk to me about the utilities. You just brought up the wastewater treatment plant. I mean, are you guys, do you own any parks today that have private utilities? If so, like, what's your comfort level?
Yeah, we definitely do. I mean, obviously we prefer city sewer and water, but you're going to walk past a lot of opportunities, for utilities. And we have a couple with wells, a couple where they have wastewater treatment plants are existing. And I was initially very nervous about the wastewater treatment plant thing. And basically, once you talk to the operator, the licensed operator, not the seller of the park or the owner, but the licensed operator, and you get a comfort level and realize they've been operating the system for 10 years and they've never had any issues, or right away, maybe you got to stick 50 to 100 grand in to upgrade certain things, motors and stuff like that. We got a great park just south of Charlotte that has a wastewater treatment plant. It's had it forever. And I mean, the park is a huge home run. So it's, you prefer city sewer and water if you can. You just got to get a comfort level up front. Septics are probably the most sketchy a little bit. You just got to make sure you got enough land at the park that if some of those septic systems fail, and they will fail, over a 40 to 50 year period, that you can pipe it over some, vacant land at the park and, set up a new drain field or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. So,
okay.
We definitely have them. There's no question.
When you guys look at something that's got like a wastewater treatment plant or a well or some other type of private utility setup, whether it's water or sewer, do you guys? I mean, is it a requirement to have have a county or city utility line close by, knowing that you've got a backup plan in place, or no? Give me your thoughts on that. We're buying a park right now in North Carolina it's got well and septic. I'm okay. We don't actually own anything on well. We do own stuff on septics. But the county line is really close. I mean, it's literally at the end of like the road of the park. It's like a 500-foot straight shot to the park, to the well house. And, we obviously wouldn't be able to plumb in the septic because it's got, individual septics for the homes. But we're comfortable with the septic side of things. At the well, that's actually probably more not the sketchy side, but I don't know if we would move forward if we didn't have a backup plan. But maybe that's just my lack of comfort with understanding wells. So talk to me a little bit about that as far as the potential backup plans are concerned, and will you guys move forward if there isn't county or city water close by or sewer close by?
Well, Chris can talk to one of the parks we have in Charlotte where we needed to add another well in order to increase the occupancy or the amount of people we could have in the park. And what did that project take? A year, maybe?
Took a year and 3 tries at it.
Yeah. So when you're drilling a new well, it's like drilling for oil. I mean, if you don't hit water, this park happens to be sort of on a bedrock, place. But again, we bought it super cheap as part of a portfolio, in 2012. So, I mean, we've more than gotten our money out of it already,
Mm-hmm.
But it was a situation where it cost $10,000 a shot basically to drill. And if you don't have any water, and finally in the third shot, we got it, and we've never had any issues with it since then. But
okay,
but you're right. You're absolutely right.
But the county source, like the county water or county or city water, is that close by or no? Like really, your only option at park was a well, another well.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would love it if the water was closer, obviously, but in this case, it's not. It's probably a mile away, and you'd have to go through other people's yards and stuff like that. So at this point, it's not, possibility. And so that's where we're. I totally agree with you. If you have a backup plan, especially, in our situation, we're big enough now and the cash flow is enough where even if we get a, $500,000 issue, it's not the end of the world. But when you're starting out in those first couple parks, you definitely don't want a big wastewater treatment or a well issue. So you really got to be careful.
That's a good point. That's actually what I wanted to talk about is like the wastewater treatments. It is the end of the world if you're a smaller guy and you have a park and that fails, right? And it was unexpected to where you've got to, I guess come up with $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to put a new treatment plant in there, and that's not really factoring all the headaches that go along with that. So talk to me a little bit about that. And Charles, you probably have some questions regarding this as far as reserves are concerned. I mean, you guys, everyone says that. I mean, we know a couple of licensed water and sewer operators, private utility operators, and they always speak about, the life expectancy of these wastewater treatment plants. And I know like the steel tanks typically tend to delaminate over, a certain period of time. The ones that have concrete tanks, not so much. But talk to me about how you guys focus on and put aside your reserves when you buy something, because most of the parks you're buying are probably 40 years old, right? I mean, so in theory, they should be I mean, the wastewater treatment plants, the ones that have the wastewater treatment plants, should be somewhat at their end of their life or coming up to the end of their life. I mean, I know parts can be replaced, things wear out, and so just talk to me a little bit about the reserves, how you guys set them aside, and are you aggressive with that, so that in the event you have a failure, you've got some money set aside, or just is your cash flow enough throughout your whole company that it doesn't really make a difference? You guys can handle a infrastructure challenge like that.
I mean, we could definitely handle any challenge, but we'd like to do all the work up front. So we'll go to the operator and say, okay, let's be the most conservative possible. What do we need to replace? Motors, tanks, whatever it is. Let's get it all in up front. Let's, if we need to make it part of the loan or whatever, let's put 50, 100 grand into it so we know we're going to get 10 years out of it or something like that. And I would highly recommend, put the money into it up front, be more cautious than you need to be, have more money set aside just because you don't know. And obviously, in your first couple parks, if you can do public city sewer and water, I mean, it's a lot easier, I think.
Okay. Charles, any questions about that one? I know that we've looked at many parks that have had wastewater treatment plants, and we haven't bought one yet. I don't think we're scared of them. I don't think we're scared of them. I don't think the right park has come along. But I mean, it always definitely like our yellow flags go up, right? And we're kind of like, okay, let's really dig into this thing and find out. Let's find the reasons why we shouldn't be buying it, right? And I think more so it's been just the park itself and why we haven't moved forward with any of them. But do you have any other questions for Mike or Chris about the wastewater treatment plants or private utilities in general?
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys do as far as reserve budgeting going forward? So you do all these big replacements up front, and then you still, what do you do as far as ongoing reserve budget as far as saving for other things that might pop up?
Well, we're doing mostly CMBS debt now, because bigger parks and stuff like that. So they're forcing you to reserve.
Yeah.
And usually we'll go back and forth with them on a number up front when we put the loan together and say, is it 500? Is it 2,000 per month? Whatever it is.
Okay.
We'll get that done. So it sort of forces you to save.
Yeah.
Okay. Two other things I'd like to say too about the wastewater treatment plant. One thing that I learned from a guy who'd been in the business a long time is we always put the system, a wastewater treatment plant, in a separate LLC and get it zoned off survey wise. So it's a separate, just from a liability standpoint, you got a separate LLC. It's a whole, different from the park. So you got an issue there. And if you ever wanted to sell that system to say like an Aqua North Carolina or something like that, it's much easier to sell. So that would be, one thing to say about that. And the other thing is it's got to be a home run deal for you to want to do it. So in our park in Charlotte, 264 spaces, there's a bunch of RVs involved there too, but there's 140 homes when we took over. We got about 165 homes in there now. And there's usually 60 to 80 RVs in there too, but we bought it for $5 million and we just got it appraised for $8 million, like a year and a half later. So
wow. Okay. That is a home run.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Chris, you're the magic man when it comes to adding homes. I mean, you're the magic man. It sounds like in a lot of ways, but I want to talk about adding homes because that is a big component nowadays. It seems like just about every park, unless it's been turned around by someone like you guys or us, I mean, just about every other park that's out there, it's owned by a mom and pop. It's got some type of vacancy factor going on, whether it's a few pads or a lot of pads. How do you guys look at those types of parks? I mean, do you look at those as opportunities, even if it's something that's like 50% or 60% occupied? And then how do you put that plan in place? I mean, it's a project to bring homes in, even if they're new. I mean, just the whole process of bringing the home in, getting it there, or prepping the lot, getting all the people in place, the hook utilities up, put the skirting on, set it, level it, all that stuff. It's a process. I mean, one's enough. If you're doing like 10 or 20 at a time, I mean, there's a lot of organization that has to go into play there. Talk to me about that a little bit and how you guys manage that part of the business.
Yeah, so for example, just this past summer, I think we bought just under 50 homes all at one time.
Wow.
They were all delivered in 3 days, basically.
Oh, my gosh.
A couple of different states. And you're right, it's about building a good team of contractors. You got to have good guys, and you want to try to keep the costs in line because they'll try to get you any way they can, some of these contractors. But yeah, it's about getting the permits pulled quickly, getting everybody paid in a timely fashion. And yeah, I mean, I think we did 20 houses, but I think 16 of them in that park Mike was just talking about, south of Charlotte. And I believe we got all of those set up within 30 days.
Wow.
And I had them all occupied within 90 or 120 days. So it was a pretty quick sprint, but staying organized with a budget, keeping track of the invoices, and obviously staying on top of your contractors is key to making that happen. And again, back to your property managers too, because in our case, we're in multiple different states. It's all going on at the same time. I need to be able to call my person and say, where are we at with X, Y, and Z? Mm-hmm. And they report back to me immediately, and we know what's going on.
In that Charlotte park, we have awesome husband and wife team that have been there for a bunch of years, lived in the park for 20. And, Chris sort of gets the contractors set up, although they've had some, but he makes sure they're in line price-wise. And then, really turn it over to the manager, and then we just got to keep on top of the manager. That's the difference between paying someone 40 or 50 grand and paying them, lot rent plus $500.
Right. Yeah, you make a good point. What are you guys paying on average, Chris, to get a home set up? I mean, I know you get some volume discounts and such, but just give me a general idea from the level setting and leveling to the tie down to the skirting. I don't know which units you guys are buying. If you're buying units that already have like the AC condenser, or if you're having to buy that as well. But I know that like Clayton or the cash program, they will reimburse up to $8,000. Are you guys typically trying to stay, a few thousand underneath that number, or do you typically use up that entire $8,000 as far as reimbursements concerned?
It really depends on the state in which you're setting the houses.
Yep.
Up north, you got the footers and foundations you need to pour, which gets to be more expensive just from a standpoint of cement costs and footers and whatnot. But typically, we're between $6,000 and $8,000 to set a house. And like I said, it really more depends on the region that you're setting the houses in.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty standard across the board when you're setting a house. I mean, it's $1,500 to $1,700 to set it, and skirting, plumbing, electrical. It's very similar from state to state.
Mm-hmm.
That $6,000 to $8,000 is typically where we find ourselves.
Yeah. And you guys, you're just selling those homes, right? You're not putting them into like the rental program with 21st, right? You're selling them off. You mentioned in the Charlotte park, like you moved like a large number of homes very quickly, shortly after setting them. Were they all purchases or some of those rentals?
Yeah, so I think we did like 20 there. And out of that 20, I think we financed through 21st directly with the customer, 14 of those. Okay. So there were 6 that we had to do some sort of a lease option type of thing.
Okay, so is that a backup plan for you guys with that cash program? Because we're going through that right now. We've got a bunch of those 21st more of the Clayton homes that are in our parks, and we're kind of seeing that there's some parks that obviously do better than others, based on the clientele, and some of the sales are slower than what we anticipated. But as far as like a rent credit type program, we can move them all day, every day, and still get $3,000 or $4,000 down. Do you guys typically kind of have that as a backup in the event that you can't get people approved through the 21st mortgage program?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously we prefer to sell them, to get them off our books, but you got to do what you got to do in this day and age. And you know how it is with the quality of residents. It really depends on the market. South Charlotte, we do really well in. Other, like Greensboro, we just never did that well in, just because it seems to be a lower quality tenant. So
okay. Depends. Okay, good deal. And then there was another question I had, and it just slipped my mind there. But quality control of the parks. I mean, you got cameras in place, but any other, I guess, techniques that you guys use to keep just really a tab of what's going on in the parks? I mean, Chris, you're only one guy, and so I mean, you can't be spread out between all these different parks. I'm sure you don't see these parks, every month or every even 2 or 3 months. So, I mean, do you guys typically have the managers do a drive around with like a camera? Like I know Frank and Dave talk about getting one of those cube cameras, and we do a very similar thing, and having the manager drive around and make a video, once a month. Do you guys do anything like that, or?
We don't. That's a good idea. I think that's a real good idea, but we do tend to get. We try to touch each property at least every 60 to 90 days. So we're definitely on it and in the parks and driving through with the managers, just basic quality control.
Okay. So 60 to 90 days, you guys, you're making a visit to each and every park. Okay.
Yeah. And we're trying to, like some of the parks like Madison, we bought a park in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's been super easy. It's all lot renters. We've had no issues. So maybe we get up there two to 3 times a year at the most. But between the two of us, we split up. Chris does more traveling than I do, but, we'll be there. And I like to be there, too, just to get little things. But I think that camera is a great idea. that's something we need to implement. It
Yeah.
really gives you
So we do that, but then, I've also found sometimes with our managers, you can still angle those cameras, so that maybe it doesn't see like the 5 tires that are stacked up beside Billy Bob's house, so so what we do sometimes that's worked out really well is we'll just go on Craigslist and we'll post a job in the gig section, which is just the free, one-off type jobs that people are looking for, and we'll find like a local college person, or everyone's got a smartphone now, right? So everyone's got a camera on them at every point. I mean, I don't care who you are, you've got a smartphone, and so we'll pay someone $75 and we'll give them very specific instructions to drive through the park, drive both ways, take some still photographs. Like we'll give them a list of what we consider infractions, like skirting missing or junk piled up, and take a picture of the infraction along with the actual unit number of the trailer, and then they'll actually send it to us through Dropbox, and we'll pay them via PayPal. So that we do that as well. That way we don't have to, visit the parks as often, but also get a third-party perspective of what the place really looks like, not what the manager did on that camera, sticking it to their roof, driving around, making sure he didn't hit lot number 18 at the right angle to where we can see what's really happening there. So, Charles,
that's good too.
Yeah, Charles. Anything else that I'm missing here? I really, the goal here was really to find out how you guys have been able to scale your business in such a successful way, and so I think I've got a good feel for it. But Charles, am I missing anything here that I didn't ask?
Yeah, one of the things that we're working through right now is how to handle our bookkeeping and accounting more efficiently. And I was just curious as to what you guys do as far as, do you hire in-house bookkeepers, or have you outsourced that to maybe your accountant who also offers bookkeeping services? What do you guys do with that?
We keep it in-house. We have 2 people that basically handle all the financial stuff. And I would never outsource that. I want to know what's going on. Every month I want reports. You got to stay on top of this stuff, obviously, to know if, the water the water bill is higher than normal or something like that. And, so yeah, I would highly recommend that, whether it's a spouse or somebody well, keep your hands on the financials.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And, the other thing, one thing, Kevin, too, that, we do differently, and you and I have talked about this before, and other people in the business disagree with me, but, we're really into lot rent. So, of the 4,000 spaces, we probably got 3,800 homes, on there, still with some vacancy left. But, of those homes, we own 200 maybe. I'd like to own 0, you know. But anything that's older, we'll sell it for $2,500 or $5,000, whatever we can get, and try to put them at a little bit, say $50 higher lot rent. So if the park's at $350, we'll put them at $395. It's all about the lot rent for me, especially as you get into CMBS loans. They don't even count the homes at all. They think they're worthless, which theoretically they should go away. And, I know a lot of people in the business do the rental thing. Yes, Communities and some other guys, the bigger guys do it. I think they're out of their mind. I mean, you might as well be in the multifamily business if you're going to do that. But so for me, the houses mean nothing. It's all about getting owners. Would we have less than 15% turnover last year again with all the, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, so. No, we agree with you. I mean, we don't try to make any profit on our homes. Like, we'll take a loss on a home if we acquired park-owned homes. I mean, just to get it off the books and to get a lot renter in there. I don't see the profits. I mean, I don't know. We run a pretty tight ship. Maybe it's not as tight as some of the other bigger operators that have the rental program in place, but I just don't see the profit. I really don't. I mean, we do have a park that has some rentals in it still that does really well, and we've got a really good management team there, an on-site maintenance guy, and so I think that's a big part of it. But just overall, it's a losing proposition, and I don't understand why people love that part of the business. I mean, I think that also makes it very challenging sometimes to buy parks. I mean, half the park owners we probably talk to, they love they put so much value on the rental part of their business, and it's really hard to persuade them differently. They're mom and pops, and they're kind of running the show themselves. And I think it's funny when I ask. I always have the conversation if we get into it deep enough about, as far as income, gross income, or I just ask really what the NOI was for the previous year. And they always give me the gross number. I don't think they ever really understand what the parks are really making. They always give me the gross. Well, I brought in $28,000 last month. Okay. Yeah, that's total rents received. What'd you really make? So, yeah, no, I agree with you there. And I think, Charles, you'll agree with that sentiment as well, that park-owned homes suck.
Yeah. And it's just the time, too. The time commitment for those things is just awful.
Well, one thing too that we just did recently, we bought a couple parks on the north side of Atlanta, and we basically both of them had about 40, 45 park-owned homes. And I would say within 90 days, we had sold back to the residents, 30 of them, 35 of them. So at each park, I mean, the residents want to own the park or want to own the home. And if you give them a decent deal, even if you got to do, payments for 6 months or whatever, and we put them at higher lot rent, I mean, that's all of a sudden you got a park that's very maintenance intensive to almost a lot rent only park. And I think it greatly increases the value.
It's funny. We've had different experiences with that. We've had experiences where we've been able to give them away to the residents, and then other experiences where this park in Virginia, it's in Richmond area. It's a great area, great market, very expensive, expensive lot rents, and even expensive rents in this park itself for the park owned homes. And I think, Charles, we had 31 park owned homes when we acquired that park. And some of these residents have lived there for like 9, 10, 12, 15 years. And we literally said, you know what? You've proven yourself. Just keep making that same payment, and we're going to just convert you directly into a rent-to-own program or a rent credit program. It'll be a 3-year program, and then we'll hand you the title, and it'll go down to lot rent. And we literally only had like 3 takers. It was unbelievable. I mean, we were blown away. And there's still probably at least 15 of those people that are still there renting, paying the same amount, and have no interest in owning that trailer. Now, today, they'd be like less than a year away from owning it, which is crazy because their payment would get cut in half. But hey,
isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
that just blew.
I got yelled at by a lady in that park. I went to their door with the manager while I just happened to be in town, and they're like, "You need to go talk to, I think, her Susie or something like that. She's been here for like 18 years, and she like had a fit. I mean, she literally, I thought she was going to hit me because I wanted to give her this gift of this home.
That's fun.
She thought it was insane. So." Yeah. Well, so I know we're running out of time here, but real quick, guys, you guys have been in this business now for a number of years, so you've seen your fair share of, craziness, right? I mean, there's good stories. I mean, great people that live in a lot of these communities, but there's also some funny stories that go along with them. So give me one, I guess maybe it could be a horror story or just a unique story that is a result of you guys being in this business. Would you mind sharing one with us?
Sure. I mean, we had more stories, obviously, in the multifamily business because it just seemed like we had just a lot of crazy people. We had the worst, it wasn't the worst investment because we did really well on it, but I would advise people never to do it. We bought a HAP contract, which is all HUD, back in Florida back in the day. And we had so many loonies walking around that place. One girl, she was a little bit large, but she loved Chris. And she would literally, when we were driving around, she would call him 17 times in a row. And, he'd never answer her call, just call. And then finally, she'd like spray paint her car and do stuff like that. But the craziest thing she'd do, she'd walk to the office with just like a shirt on and no like underwear or anything like that.
Oh my God.
I mean, she was off the rails loony, but the problem was everybody else in that complex was loony too. So
I think that's Florida. I think that's
that might be Florida. Yeah,
I think we live here, so I can't talk bad about it. But I think that's the crazies kind of leave I think what they do is they get cold wherever they're living, and they're like, oh, screw this, I'm going down to the warm climate so I can be crazy outside instead of being stuck inside the house.
I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you guys coming on the show. And Charles, any last questions or thoughts before we wrap it up here for today?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay, good deal. Well, Mike and Chris, absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us here and just sharing your knowledge and wisdom. You guys are obviously, you've proven your success. You guys are, just really making things happen in a big way, and appreciate your willingness to share it, right? There's so many people that are so close to the vest about their systems, their processes, what works for them, and I hate that. That drives me crazy because I feel like we can all accomplish so much more as a team by helping one another out. And all those big operators out there that have it close to the vest, that don't want to share their information, they had to start somewhere as well. And so I really appreciate you guys being so open about your business. It means a lot to us, and as well as the thousands of listeners that we get that are looking to dive into this business. So guys, it's a pleasure. You have a wonderful, wonderful week, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again sometime soon.
All right. Thanks for having us, guys.
Yep.
Congratulations for taking the necessary steps to achieving massive success through the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Be sure to visit our website, mobilehomeparkacademy.com, to download your free digital ebook version of the 21 biggest mistakes investors make when buying their first mobile home park and how you can avoid them. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our free monthly mobile home park investing newsletter which is jammed full of valuable tips, tricks, and strategies to help you accelerate your path to success as a mobile home park investor. More information about this podcast and its hosts can be found by visiting mobilehomeparkacademy.com.